They thought the old man was senile because he cried over a tree. They didn't know the biker he whispered to was the president of the Road Warriors MC, a man who'd lost his own father to grief. And what happened next would light up the entire town. 82-year-old Frank Morrison stood in his front yard, staring at the stump where his wife's Christmas tree had been. The blue spruce Margaret had planted 40 years ago, the year they bought this house. The tree they decorated together every December until cancer took her last winter. Now it was just a stump. Fresh sawdust covered the frozen ground. "I told you that tree was blocking my view," his neighbor Richard Crane shouted from his brand-new McMansion next door. "Property values matter more than your sentimental garbage. I called the city. It was on the property line, technically half mine." Frank's hands trembled as he held a faded ornament, a handmade angel Margaret had crafted in 1985. He'd found it in the sawdust. Its wing was broken. "Margaret planted this tree when we found out we couldn't have children," Frank whispered, tears streaming down his weathered face. "She said it would be our family. Every Christmas we'd hang ornaments and talk to it like it was our baby." Crane laughed from his heated driveway. "It was just a tree, old man. Get over it. Welcome to progress." Frank sank to his knees in the snow, clutching the broken angel. He had no one left. No family, no Margaret, and now no tree. For 3 days, Frank tried everything. He called the police. They said it was a civil matter. He called a lawyer. They wanted $5,000 up front. He knocked on other neighbors' doors. They looked away, afraid of Crane, the wealthy developer who owned half the street. Frank hadn't eaten in 2 days. Grief consumed him. Without Margaret, without the tree, what was left? On Wednesday night, he walked to the community diner, the only place he could still afford coffee. His veteran's pension barely covered his mortgage after Margaret's medical bills. That's where he saw them. 5 bikers in leather vests sitting in the corner booth, rough-looking men with tattoos and scars, the kind of people Margaret would have said to avoid. But Frank had nothing left to lose. He approached their table, his voice shaking. The biggest one, a man with prayers on his vest and a gray beard, looked up. "Can we help you, sir?" the biker asked, his tone surprisingly respectful. Frank's voice cracked. I don't mean to bother you, but I have no one else to ask." The biker, whose name patch read Bull, gestured to an empty chair. "Sit down, brother. Talk to us." Frank sat, his hands wrapped around a cold coffee cup a waitress brought him. The words tumbled out. Margaret's death, the tree, the 40 years of memories, the broken ornament, Crane's cruelty. "He cut it down 3 days ago while I was at the VA hospital for my checkup," Frank whispered, leaning close to Bull so the other diners wouldn't hear his shame. "He cut down my wife's Christmas tree, the last thing I had of her, and everyone says I should just let it go." Tears rolled down Frank's face. "I'm sorry. You boys don't need an old man's problems. I had to tell someone." Bull's jaw tightened. He looked at his brothers. Something unspoken passed between them, a code, a shared understanding. "What's your address, Frank?" Bull asked quietly. Bull didn't make promises. He just asked Frank to go home and rest. That night, Bull rode past Frank's house. He saw the stump, the sawdust, the pathetic little ornament hanging from a nail Frank had driven into the stump, the broken angel, swaying in the winter wind. Next door, Crane's mansion blazed with lights. Through the massive windows, Bull watched Crane laughing with friends, showing off his improved view, a view that now looked directly at Frank's modest home. Bull pulled out his phone and made calls. First to the county records office. His old lady worked there, then to a few brothers who owed him favors. Within an hour, he had everything. Property surveys, photos from 1985 showing the original property line, records of Margaret Morrison's tree planting permit, and something else, something that made Bull's blood boil. The tree had been entirely on Frank's property. Crane had lied. But there was more. Bull's contact found code violations on Crane's mansion, illegal additions, unpermitted construction, bribes to inspectors. Crane was a bully who'd been getting away with it for years because he had money and connections. Bull made one more call to Frank's neighbor across the street, an elderly woman named Dorothy. She'd watched the whole thing happen. "I wanted to say something," Dorothy admitted, her voice trembling over the phone. "But Richard threatened to sue me if I interfered. He said he'd take my house. I'm scared of him." "Don't be scared anymore," Bull said. "How many Christmas ornaments do you have?" "What? Christmas ornaments, ma'am? Dozens? Hundreds? Well, I've been collecting for 50 years, so I'll pick them up tomorrow morning. And Dorothy, get your camera ready." On Saturday morning, December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, Frank woke to the sound of rumbling engines. 50 motorcycles lined his street. The Road Warriors MC had arrived in full force. But they weren't alone. Pickup trucks followed, carrying something Frank couldn't believe, a 20-foot blue spruce tree, root ball intact, ready for planting. Bull knocked on Frank's door. "Morning, brother. We need your permission to plant something." Frank stepped outside in his bathrobe, speechless. Tears streamed down his face as he watched 20 bikers unload the tree, a perfect, healthy blue spruce almost identical to Margaret's. Where did you? Frank couldn't form words. "Tree farm 2 counties over," Bull said. "Owner's a veteran. Gave us the family discount when we told him the story. Now, we need to plant this before your neighbor wakes up." But Crane was already awake. He stormed out in his silk pajamas, phone in hand. "What the hell is this? I'm calling the police. This is trespassing. That tree will block my view again." Bull turned slowly. "Call them, please." Crane dialed. Within minutes, 2 police cars arrived, but so did a county inspector's van, a news crew, and dozens of neighbors who'd heard about the gathering. Officer Williams stepped out, a veteran himself, wearing a small American flag pin. "What's the problem here?" "These criminals are planting a tree that blocks my property," Crane shouted. Bull handed Officer Williams a folder. "Sir, these are the original property surveys from 1985. The tree Mr. Crane cut down was entirely on Mr. Morrison's property. He committed criminal trespassing and destruction of property." Crane's face went red. "That's a lie. The city said—" "The city clerk you bribed?" Bull interrupted. "Yeah, we have recordings of that too. Also, the county inspector here has some questions about your unpermitted additions, your illegal deck, and the wetland violations behind your house." The inspector stepped forward with official documents. "Mr. Crane, I'm shutting down your property pending investigation. You'll also be receiving citations for—" He flipped through pages. 14 separate code violations. The news camera rolled. Neighbors watched from porches, some filming on phones. Dorothy crossed the street, carrying a box of ornaments, hundreds of them, donated by the entire neighborhood. "These are for you, Frank," she said, crying. "We should have helped sooner. We were cowards." One by one, neighbors approached with ornaments, lights, tinsel. The bikers worked in teams, some planting the tree, others stringing lights, others hanging decorations. Crane tried to retreat to his house, but Officer Williams stopped him. "Sir, we need to talk about those recordings. And the tree you illegally cut down is valued at $15,000. Mr. Morrison can press charges." Frank looked at Crane, broken, humiliated, facing legal consequences. For a moment, everyone waited for Frank's decision. "No charges," Frank said quietly, "but he plants a tree in his own yard. Something he has to care for. Something that reminds him what he destroyed." Bull squeezed Frank's shoulder. "You're a better man than most, brother." By nightfall, Frank's new tree stood tall, covered in lights and hundreds of ornaments from the community. The bikers had installed professional lighting that made it visible from a mile away. Bull handed Frank a small box. Inside was the broken angel ornament, professionally repaired, its wing restored, placed in a protective case. "Margaret's angel goes on top," Bull said. "Every year. That's the rule." Frank climbed the ladder, bikers steadying it, and placed the angel at the peak. When they plugged in the lights, the entire street erupted in applause. The tree lit up the night, visible throughout the town. News stations ran the story. Bikers restore veterans' Christmas spirit. Donations poured in to help Frank with his mortgage. Crane sold his house at a loss and moved away. His replacement planted 3 trees as a peace offering to the neighborhood. That Christmas Eve, Frank stood by his tree with Bull and the road warriors. "Margaret would have loved this," he whispered. "She's watching, brother," Bull replied, "and she's proud." The broken angel on top seemed to glow brighter, watching over Frank and his new family, a family bound not by blood, but by honor, respect, and the simple act of doing what's right. Would you help restore someone's stolen Christmas? Let me know in the comments.